Essay number 15, Laboring. Here is the world. Beautiful and terrible things will happen. Don't be afraid. Frederick Buechner. When I became pregnant with our first son, Elliot, there were a lot of unknowns floating around in the air as I learned what it's like to carry a life inside a womb for 9 whole months. I experienced pain that I never had before, weariness and fresh strength, often all within the same few hours. I was in labor for more than 24 hours. My contractions were extra long and extra painful. We'd watch the monitor show the peak of each one, and Barb, my nurse, would look at me wide-eyed and wonder how my little body was holding all of it in. Travis and I had taken a class on the Bradley method. I learned breathing techniques to deal with the pain of each contraction, and he learned how to work with me, speaking some sort of encouraging word while he held my hand and rubbed my back, while he fed me ice chips in the few minutes of respite I had between each one. We were told to embrace and envelop the pain, to treat it as something to work with instead of against. As a Western society, we are pretty uncomfortable with things that hurt, and we are pretty uncomfortable with the process of grief and long-time healing. Because we are so afraid, we avoid what's uncomfortable. We hide in our fear, thinking that it's safer there, that it won't hurt so much. During my contractions, I'd start the exercise breathing, Travis holding my hand all the way through, and I'd wake up a minute later. I had fallen asleep. Somehow my body found its rhythm with the pain, and not long after, Elliot was born. I think about what I missed out on as a child because I was afraid. I was afraid of the unknown, afraid of the dark, afraid of going too high or too far, afraid of the water, afraid of adventure. In labor, I wanted to find an emboldened woman, and through each contraction, I found her inch by inch, taking off the veils that had long concealed her face and mighty strength. After Elliot was born, I was someone new. I had shed off layers of fear and constraint. I understood that when I lean into pain and let it run its sacred and difficult course, it teaches me something. But when we could be leaning into the pain, many of us instead distract ourselves so it cannot reach us. Years later, we find that we are still processing those things we were afraid to say out loud or face in our deepest need. That is where community comes in, where we gather around each other and tell our stories. You'll know my hurts, you'll know where my pain stems from, what happens when I'm tethered to my identity fully and wholly. In labor, each contraction has a beginning and an end. But in life, the process winds back and forth, down and around, as you feel your way through whatever is contracting inside of you. If we remember the process, maybe healing will look different for us. And if we treat healing differently, maybe sooner or later we will come closer to a fullness in our living, closer to the fullness of God with us after the long hours of labor are done. A prayer. Jesus, surely you knew pain. Surely you knew what it meant to breathe in and out and look fear in the eye and say that you were going to be stronger in the end. Surely you knew what it would take to give birth to your own death, to quiet your soul after hours of hanging. And surely you knew that those days of pain would birth you again into life, into this new form of yourself that you'd been waiting for so long. May we lean into ourselves that way, leaning into you, into the process of being human and understanding our pain as though it has something important to teach us. Lean us into our pain, lean us into our strength, lean us into spirit and soul and life, lean us into you. Amen.